Whether you like it or not, having a side hustle is almost a necessity anymore. So in this video, I'm gonna go over 5 side hustles, one of which I've made $25,000 from. So let's get into it. How's it going? My name is Michael Tanich. I run a full service marketing agency and welcome to my YouTube channel. Like I said, in this video, we're gonna go over 5 side hustles that you can do, one of which I've made $25,000 from. Now, the reason I'm making this video is I've had a lot of conversations with family and friends about how they need additional income to pay for student debt or save money for a house, or to just pay normal expenses. And I totally get where they're coming from. When I had a full-time job, I wasn't making enough to be able to cover all my expenses, especially as my family was growing. So I had to have multiple side hustles to be able to cover those expenses. So after having multiple conversations, I decided to do a little bit more research to see how many more Americans are actually having the same exact issue. So I hopped on the handy dandy Google and I typed in how many people have a side hustle, CNBC. According to this article by CNBC, about 54% of the respondents to their survey said that they had or they have a side hustle. Out of the millennials that they surveyed, about 64% of them said that they had a side hustle. Out of the Gen Xers, 58%, and out of the baby boomers, 44%. So this made me really realize that this wasn't just something that my friends and I were having an issue with. So I jumped back onto the handy dandy Google and I typed in average salary in the US CNBC. And this was the CNBC article that showed up. If you're in between the ages of 20 and 24, the average salary is about $30,000 a year. If you're in the ages between 25 and 34, the average salary is about $43,000 a year. So after reading that article, it kind of made a lot more sense as to why people need these side hustles. And of course, I'm sure some of it comes down to needing to budget better and save better. But when you have that little income coming in, it's hard to save money or put it towards debts that need to be paid down, especially if you're growing a family. So then after reading that article, I jumped on the handy dandy Google one more time and I typed in how many people need a side hustle to stay afloat. And this is the article that came up by Bankrate. According to their survey, 1 in 3 side hustlers need the income to stay afloat. They also have a couple graphs on here that talked about how employed side hustles use their extra income. About 35% of them use it for disposable income for spending. About 30% of them use the money that they get from a side hustle to pay for regular living expenses. And about 25% of them use it for income for saving. And if you scroll down a little more in this article, it kind of breaks down the average money that they are able to bring in from these side hustles. The majority of it is $500 or less, and then the next bracket is about $500 to $1,000 every single month. So after doing all that research, it kind of makes sense to me as to why the average American needs some kind of side hustle to pay for their extra expenses. Now let's move this research stuff aside and actually get into it. Now I do want to say before I get started is that the majority of these I have done and I've made some kind of money from. And these aren't BS side hustles like
fill out a bunch of surveys or open a bunch of apps and get paid to open apps or drive around with Uber.
These are actual side hustles that I've done and made money from and that you can do too. So that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is being a stripper. I'm just kidding. The first one is doing everyday tasks. Now something that's like an everyday task is like cutting the yards or painting or delivering things or putting together furniture for someone. Literally anyone can do this. You don't need any technology to do this. You don't need any kind of background to do these kind of things. If you can fling paint and a brush, you can go and paint someone's house. Or if you have access to a lawnmower, you're able to go and cut people's grass. Obviously I've done a couple of these, namely like cutting grass, snow plowing, painting people's houses, those kind of things. So everyday tasks. Now there's a couple different places you can go to find these kind of jobs. One of them is TaskRabbit, and you can fill out your profile here and go and select any kind of jobs that you want on there. It kind of works somewhat like Uber, where it notifies you of potential jobs nearby and you can select one to complete. And then you're able to confirm the details with the clients and then send them an invoice. Another one that you can sign up on is Thumbtack. It has a bunch of different jobs on there, including like wedding photographers and DJs. So there aren't exactly everyday tasks, but there are people that fill out things on there that are everyday tasks that you can do. Other ones that you can look into are Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist for some kind of job ads, and then you can go and complete those everyday tasks for those people. However, for me, I like doing it the old-fashioned way, where I go and knock on a couple doors or mail out a couple flyers or handwrite a couple notes and give them out to neighbors that are near me. and offered to do their yard or offered to paint their house or offered to do some kind of cleaning service for them once a week. Now, by no means is this like the fancy thing to do or is it the cool thing to do, but if you are looking for a side hustle and you're looking to go and make additional income, this is a great place to start. Okay, so for number 2 is building up social media profiles. Now, obviously a couple of years ago, something like this was a lot easier to do, but it's still a huge possibility to bring in money as a side hustle. Now, what I mean by this is picking a topic that you like or you're interested in or you see that is going to be some kind of trend and building an Instagram account or Facebook account around that. Ultimately, with the goal to either sell that page, sell some kind of ads on there for other people, or sell some kind of product or service that you have. Now, I'll give you a couple examples that I've done. One of which was I built a Facebook page to over 100,000 followers and was able to sell it for $500. Now, granted, the topic that I had done wasn't too desirable, so that's why it was only for $500, but it was a page that I had made on a whim, off a trend, and within a couple days, I just made a quick $500. Another one that I had done was I had set up an Instagram account specifically around Jeep Wranglers. I had done this because my wife and I had actually owned one until the engine blew up, and I didn't put a ton of effort into it and only was able to get it up a couple hundred followers. But in that process, I had set up a TeePublic store where I sold t-shirts on that store, and people would go from that Instagram account that I had made and bought a Jeep related shirt off my TeePublic store. And to give you a quick overview, TeePublic is a store where basically you could set up a design on a t-shirt and people will purchase it from you and you make a couple bucks per shirt. Now, I still have that floating out there, and every couple months I get about $6 to $10 that just kind of flows in from that product. It's not a ton of money, and obviously I didn't put a ton of effort into it, but if you were to put a ton of effort into it, pick a topic that you really liked or pick a topic that was trending and was able to start selling products or start selling ads or sell the page itself, it's a good way to make some money off of a side hustle. Now, number 3 is doing Printful or Shopify. Now, if you haven't heard of Printful before, basically what happens is you can go and upload a design and put it on a t-shirt or a mug or a poster, and then they will print on demand for you. So basically what that means is if someone orders a t-shirt or a mug or something from you, they'll print that design on there and then just ship it directly out to them, and then you get to collect whatever the upcharge is on that. Now, this is kind of a play off of number 2, where you can go and sell a product to those pages that you've built up an audience on, and that could either be, like I said, a t-shirt or a mug or a poster. Now, once you have Printful set up, you'll want to be able to set up an e-commerce store to be able to sell those products. So you'll just want to go on Shopify, set up an account with them. It's free for the first 30 days. Pick out a theme, upload your products by setting them up in Printful and syncing them in, and then buy a domain, which is about $10 to hook up with Shopify, and then you're ready for the races. Now, in the past when I've done these things, it's always attached to a trend. Now, I'll give you an example. Now, a couple of years ago, the Pope, and if you aren't familiar with the Pope, he's like the top guy in the Catholic world. Anyhow, he was coming into Philadelphia, and I got word of it before anyone else. So I immediately thought for a second, okay, I can go and sell a bunch of t-shirts for this and make a good amount of money off of it. Now, I didn't set up a Shopify account and I didn't set up Printful because I didn't know about these things at the time. But if something like that happened right now, that is exactly how I would do it. Now, with that specific side hustle, because it was a trend, because it was someone coming into Philly, because it was this huge event, I was actually interviewed by a couple news channels. I was able to rank the website for the specific keywords that were being searched for, so people were coming to my site and then purchasing products, and I was able to build up a good social media following to be able to sell these products. Like I said though, this only really worked because it was a trend. It was something that was happening really fast, that there was a lot of interest for. I was able to quickly move into that space and kind of become the top person for the t-shirts, and I made a couple $1,000s off of selling those shirts. Like I said, the key for these kind of things is hitting some trend. It's not a long-term thing that you're going to be able to build up. It's going to be a very quick, very fast thing. So if you're able to set up Printful really quick, set up Shopify, get a domain put onto it, and then run some ads, SEO the site, and figure out ways that you can get it out there, you have a good shot of being able to capture that trend. Now, a couple ideas to give you an idea of what a trend is I know next couple months we have the election coming up, or a couple months ago we had that raid Area 51 stuff. Those are two huge things that are very quickly trending, and you're able to sell a bunch of stuff for, and then it ends, and then that's it. So if you're willing to go a little tech savvy and you can identify the right trends, you have a good chance of making a good amount of money off of this side hustle very quickly. Now, number 4, and this is one of the best ways to make extra money as a side hustle, is hitting that subscribe button down here and then hitting that like button over here. maybe it's this way, I don't know. But make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button so then you can, follow me and learn how to make some extra money. But seriously, number 4 is building websites. I will make a quick caveat here because obviously, because I run a marketing agency, this is something that we do for our clients, and we do them on a scale where they're completely customizable. We get super deep into the code. We're building e-commerce sites, like super detailed, hard stuff. So if you need a website, make sure you send me a message and we can definitely help you guys out. That being said, there is definitely a market out there where people want a website made that is very, very simple, whether it's for like pet sitting or a photographer or something like that, for just a couple $100, and you're able to go and build a Squarespace drag and drop site for them, and then they have a beautiful looking website and you made a couple $100 off of it. Like I said though, it's very easy to go into the deep end with websites where you start a project with a client and you think it's gonna be a super simple thing, but then you find out that they want some kind of detailed e-commerce thing or some kind of detailed coding on it that Squarespace isn't able to do. So if you do wanna go down this path, just be a little careful with who you're picking as your clients and have that upfront conversation that this is exactly what they're getting and you can't do that extra detailed stuff. So for the last one, and this is the one that I made $25,000 off of, is setting up an Etsy account. I talked about this one in my last video a little bit about how I quit my full-time job and started my own business. And this was a big reason as to why I was able to do that. And similar to number 3, which is setting up the Printful and Shopify stuff, it was attached to somewhat of a trend that was spiking very quickly that I was able to jump into. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna be able to make a ton of money off of just selling some random necklace, unless you're able to completely stand out and or you hit some kind of trend. I was finding that Snapchat was really starting to take off, and that geo filters, which are the filters that when you take a photo and you swipe over, a photo or a graphic shows up, was just made available to outside designers, outside of Snapchat designers.
That
Now, about a year prior, my wife and I had gotten married, and while we were in that process, literally anything that we wanted to have on our wedding was on the table. And what I mean by that is we recognized that that was a very special day to us, and so we were willing to pay the little extra bit to make it even more special. And I knew, okay, if we were able to do that, and Snapchat's popping off, and we're allowed to do filters, there should be no reason that people wouldn't want a custom geo filter for their wedding. So I actually put up a couple listings on Etsy saying, hey, we'll design a custom filter for you, a cartoon of you and your spouse, and run it around your venue for your wedding. And within the first couple days, it completely popped off. Now, we would sell these filters for about $50 to $75 each. And when I first started, it took me a couple hours to get one filter done, but as I got better at it, as I got quicker at it, I was able to get a filter done within 45 minutes to about an hour. So let's jump into my dashboard on Etsy really quick and I'll show you the sales that we're able to have. Now, as you can see, this was over a 2-year period, so this wasn't something that I just was able to crank out in a couple months and then made $25,000. This is stretched out over 2 years. Another thing you'll notice too is at the top it actually says $23,000. I had an additional website where we would sell geofilters on there. I had done SEO for it, I had a social media account for it, and the reason I set up this extra website is I didn't want to pay the Etsy fees, and I wanted a different way that people can find us and, obviously increase orders. Now, I don't have the exact data off of that site because I closed the website because it stopped getting traffic, but we had about $2,000 to $3,000 on there and we had some pretty large orders come in. But like I said, as you can see, there was about 456 orders on here and we made about $23,000 just off Etsy. Bear in mind, if it took me about an hour to 2 hours for every single order, that's 456 to about 800 hours spent on just this side hustle. Now, like I said, this was off of another trend. Are there ways to make a ton of money on Etsy anyhow? Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're able to figure out the SEO stuff of ranking your listing when someone types in a specific keyword. And lastly, one thing I noticed on Etsy is if you're able to get in there and do a listing for a wedding or for someone's child, people are willing to pay extra for those products or services. So those are 5 ways that you can do side hustles, all of which that I have done and brought a good amount of money in from. And I know that you guys are able to do the same. If you have any questions on exactly how to do any one of these side hustles, leave a comment below and I'll make sure to message you back with the answer. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and if you do end up subscribing, thank you very much. It is very appreciated. And I'm excited to continue this journey with you guys, and I will see you in the next video.